Judge Amy Coney Barrett remained perfectly still in her black robe, her eyes fixed on the stack of papers before her. The Supreme Court Justice's expression was unreadable as she slowly raised a document that would shift the course of the proceedings. "Mr. Combs," she began, her voice slicing through the courtroom's tense stillness. "These phone records indicate calls to numbers you swore under oath never existed." Sean "Diddy" Combs, the billionaire music mogul, squirmed slightly in his seat. A man once known for his charisma and self-assuredness now looked visibly diminished. His tailored designer suit couldn't mask the nervous sweat gathering at his brow as Judge Barrett turned another page. What followed sent ripples through the entertainment world and shocked countless Americans. A Supreme Court justice was about to bring to light secrets Diddy had spent decades concealing. Before we dive deeper into the bombshell courtroom developments, be sure to subscribe and comment where you're tuning in from. This story is far from over. Originally, Justice Barrett wasn't even meant to be involved in this case. At 52, she had been on the bench of the nation's highest court for nearly 5 years, following her contentious confirmation in 2020. Known for her disciplined, sharp approach to the law, Barrett had earned a reputation for being thorough and methodical. Diddy, 54, had spent decades growing his business empire, from bad boy records to fashion labels and alcohol brands, and had amassed nearly $900 million. His lavish lifestyle, A-list connections, and public image made him seem untouchable. The case that brought them together started out like many others: allegations of financial misconduct within Diddy's sprawling businesses. Initial charges centered on tax evasion and money laundering, serious but not uncommon among high-profile figures. Most believed it would result in a settlement and fade from headlines. However, a complex set of legal moves brought the matter to the Supreme Court. Diddy's attorneys argued that key documents contained proprietary information and sought to have them sealed. The debate over whether this evidence could be admitted eventually landed on Justice Barrett's desk. Her task was straightforward: determine the admissibility of a collection of phone records spanning nearly 20 years. But as she studied them the night before the hearing, she uncovered inconsistencies that reframed the entire case. "These records contradict previous sworn statements," she told her clerk. "This is no longer just about money." Inside the courtroom, tension hung thick in the air. Diddy sat surrounded by a team of elite attorneys, 5 high-profile lawyers known for rescuing wealthy clients from legal peril. Opposing them was a government team led by federal prosecutor Rebecca Chen, a seasoned expert in financial crime. She had built her career targeting corporate fraud and had seen her fair share of evasive tactics. The gallery brimmed with journalists, legal analysts, and celebrities linked to Diddy. Near the back were 3 former FBI agents who had spent years investigating the mogul, unsure if their work would ever see the light of day. As Judge Barrett began to speak, the crowd quieted to a hush. "Have reviewed the submitted phone records," she said, her tone composed. "And I have found numerous discrepancies between these documents and Mr. Combs's testimony from April 12th. Diddy's lead attorney, James Williams, rose quickly. "Your Honor, the records in question were improperly acquired." "They should not," Barrett cut in. "Mr. Williams, I've carefully reviewed your objections. The subpoenas served to AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile were lawful. All procedures were followed, including judicial oversight by Judge Henderson of the Southern District of New York." She lifted a thick binder, adjusting her reading glasses. "The documentation is here." Diddy leaned in to whisper frantically to his attorney. Williams stood again. "Your Honor, Mr. Combs has testified regarding his communications. These calls are related to confidential business dealings and have no bearing on the charges." Barrett removed her glasses. "That's precisely the concern. Your client testified under oath that he had no contact with Marcus Thompson from January 2015 through June 2020. These records reveal 73 calls during that exact period. She turned to a highlighted page. On December 17, 2017, at 10:42 p.m., a call was made from Mr. Combs's primary phone to Mr. Thompson. The call lasted 23 minutes. A wave of murmurs spread through the courtroom. Marcus Thompson was a convicted financial operator who vanished after serving time. In the crowd, the mother of a late artist visibly gasped. Her son once accused Diddy and Thompson of hiding his royalties. Williams tried again. Your Honor, Mr. Combs interacts with countless individuals. Forgetting a few calls over 5 years is not perjury. Barrett raised an eyebrow. 73 calls to one individual is hardly forgettable, she continued. These records also include calls to international numbers tied to offshore entities, Oceanic Ventures, Lided, Starlight Holdings, and Momentum Enterprises. Mr. Combs claimed he had never done business through foreign shell companies. Holding up another document, she said, "These corporations don't list Mr. Combs as an officer, but he contacted them more than his own production company." Prosecutor. Chen stood. "These shell companies are connected to over $200 million in suspicious transfers. This clearly contradicts Mr. Combs's sworn claims." She handed Barrett a timeline mapping out the calls and corresponding money movements. The correlation is undeniable. Diddy's confident posture began to falter. As Barrett moved onto transcripts of text messages, things worsened. These messages refer to moving funds before quarter close and using usual channels, language consistent with efforts to conceal transactions, she read. Here's one. Move the Cayman money before the audit. Sent 2 days before a federal filing deadline. Another lawyer, Peterson, interrupted. Your Honor, in entertainment, this language is often metaphorical. Barrett's expression hardened. Is move the Cayman money before the audit metaphorical, counselor? Peterson said nothing. One former FBI agent whispered to another. She's doing it. She's got him. Barrett continued dissecting the records, connecting each call and message to specific financial events. Every objection from Diddy's legal team was overruled. During a recess, Diddy slammed a hand on the conference room table. I pay you to prevent this. You told me these records were gone. Jessica Lee, the youngest attorney, replied cautiously. No one expected Barrett to go this deep. She cross-referenced thousands of data points. This isn't normal judicial review. She doesn't care who you are, Williams added. She cares about the law. Peterson leaned forward. We need to explore a plea deal. This is spiraling. I don't plead, Diddy snapped. Find another way. When court resumed, Barrett returned to the bench without fanfare. The location data is also concerning, she said. On March 15, 2019, Mr. Combs claimed to be in Los Angeles. His phone shows him in Nassau, Bahamas, at an address linked to Oceanic Ventures. That day, $3.7 million was transferred from one of his companies to an offshore bank. She turned another page. On July 7, 2020, he said he was in Miami. His phone data places him in Zurich, the same location as Marcus Thompson. With each revelation, the silence in the courtroom deepened. Williams made a final plea. Your Honor, these matters are for the lower court. Today's issue is evidence admissibility. These records are prejudicial and breach privacy. Barrett nodded. You're correct, and I'm ready to rule. The courtroom froze. Diddy stared ahead, his face tense. Every eye in the room was on Barrett, waiting to hear the decision that could change everything. These records are not only admissible, Barrett declared, her voice ringing clearly through the courtroom, but they raise serious concerns about potential perjury, witness tampering, and obstruction of justice that cannot be ignored. I am referring these matters to the Department of Justice for immediate investigation. She closed her binder with a soft thud that echoed in the stillness. The evidence pointed to a pattern of deception far beyond the original financial charges. This court, Barrett made clear, would not overlook such conduct, no matter who was involved. Prosecutor Chen couldn't suppress a slight smile. This went far beyond what she had anticipated. She quickly gathered her notes, eager to brief her superiors. For Diddy, the moment marked the beginning of a nightmare. The carefully cultivated image he had built over decades was collapsing in full view, dismantled by one of the nation's most respected judges. Her precision and poise in exposing the truth left the room stunned. A nearby security guard, veteran of 30 years in the courthouse, murmured to a colleague, "Never seen anything like that." She didn't raise her voice once, just laid it all out like she was reciting a grocery list. That man's life? Over. Just as Judge Barrett prepared to close the hearing, the courtroom doors opened. A tall man in a dark suit entered and walked briskly to the prosecution table. He handed a folder to Prosecutor Chen, whispered something, and took a seat in the front row. His presence stirred instant speculation. Some recognized him, Special Agent Thomas Reeves, head of the FBI's Financial Crimes Task Force. As Chen flipped through the folder's contents, her usually composed expression briefly faltered. She recovered quickly, but not before several observers caught her look of alarm. "Your Honor," Chen said, standing, "I apologize for the interruption, but we've just received critical information that directly impacts this matter. May I approach?" Barrett nodded, and Chen brought the folder to the bench. The judge reviewed the documents carefully. With each page, her expression grew more serious. She looked up at Diddy, now visibly tense. "Mr. Williams," she addressed his attorney, "were you aware that your client made 17 phone calls to a federal witness in the hours after receiving a subpoena for his phone records?" Williams appeared genuinely taken aback. He turned to Diddy, who looked away. "No, Your Honor," Williams said. "I was not made aware of any such calls." "I suspected as much," Barrett replied, her tone measured. The witness in question, Anthony Mendes, was scheduled to testify next week about offshore accounts allegedly connected to Mr. Combs. Barrett now looked directly at Diddy. "These new records indicate that after receiving the subpoena, you contacted several individuals who are now either missing or have fled the country." Diddy finally spoke, his voice strained. "Your Honor, I speak to a lot of people, business associates, friends." Barrett cut him off. "One of those individuals was found dead in Miami 3 days ago. Cause of death is under investigation." A collective gasp swept the room. This case had shifted from financial misconduct into far darker territory. Reporters quietly exited to report the breaking news. Diddy paled. His lawyers conferred in urgent whispers, while Jessica Lee, the youngest member of the team, quietly stepped back, visibly disturbed. Barrett wasn't done. The records also include transcripts of conversations between Mr. Combs and 2 others discussing how to, quote, handle the phone record situation. These occurred over an encrypted messaging app. One participant has since provided the full chat history. She read from the transcript. "We need to make sure those records never see daylight. Too many connections that can't be explained. That message was sent from Diddy's account the day after he was notified of the subpoena. Someone had turned. In high-stakes investigations, that often signaled the beginning of the end." The courtroom remained silent, aside from the frantic tapping of reporters' phones. Prosecutor Chen seized the moment. "Your Honor, in light of this new evidence, the government requests that Mr. Combs be taken into custody immediately. He poses both a flight risk and a potential danger to witnesses." She gestured to the folder. "These communications reveal a disturbing pattern of intimidation and obstruction," she continued. "Mr. Combs maintains residences in countries without U.S. extradition treaties." Williams jumped to his feet. "This is outrageous. Mr. Combs has complied with every court date. He's surrendered his passport. These allegations are unproven and taken out of context. A separate hearing is the appropriate venue, not this." Barrett raised a hand for silence. "Mr. Williams, your client contacted witnesses after being explicitly instructed not to." There is credible evidence of obstruction and possibly worse. I find the government's request justified. She turned to the marshal. Mr. Combs is remanded to custody pending further proceedings. The marshals approached. Diddy seemed frozen. Your Honor, please, this is a mistake. These messages are being misinterpreted. I run businesses, support charities. I can't just disappear into custody. You'll have every opportunity to explain in court, Barrett replied. But I cannot in good conscience allow you to remain free when there's credible evidence of interference with the judicial process. As the marshals cuffed him, silence blanketed the room. Sketch artists hurried to capture the scene as Diddy, for decades an untouchable figure in the music world, was led away. His supporters quickly distanced themselves. One longtime producer whispered, "He's finished. Nobody comes back from this." Outside, news helicopters circled overhead. Diddy, detained, trended online within minutes. Social media exploded. Reactions ranged from shock to a long-awaited sense of justice. Judge Barrett just changed the game, one tweet read. An artist once silenced by legal threats tweeted, "Finally." It was shared over 50,000 times. In an hour, old allegations began resurfacing. Emboldened by Barrett's stand, witnesses came forward. The dam had broken. Back inside, as calm returned, Barrett addressed the attorneys. This case has taken an unexpected turn, but the rule of law stands, regardless of status or wealth. She gathered her notes. Court is adjourned until further notice. The Department of Justice will be notified immediately. Prosecutor Chen stayed behind briefly, speaking quietly with a colleague. We've been building this for years. Barrett just gave us the keys to the kingdom. 3 retired FBI agents in the back exchanged glances. Their long-dormant case had been revived, thanks to Barrett's meticulous review. She found what we couldn't prove in 5 years, one said, and made it impossible to ignore. Outside, news coverage dominated the airwaves. Legal analysts called the hearing historic. Barrett dismantled years of deception in one session, a former prosecutor commented. This could change how we handle high-profile defendants going forward. In her chambers weeks later, Barrett reviewed the fallout. A sweeping 47-count indictment had been filed. She declined every media request, letting her record speak for itself. But her decision to unseal the phone records had triggered something larger. More than 24 people came forward with accounts of threats, abuse, and financial manipulation. Her clerk entered with a remark. They're calling it the Barrett effect. Phone records are being revisited nationwide. 3 major settlements just got reopened. Barrett offered no comment, simply focused on the law. On her desk sat letters from ordinary Americans. A defrauded small business owner, a pensioner robbed by fraud, a mother whose son had been silenced by corporate power. Each letter expressed thanks that someone in authority had shown justice was still possible. One letter stood out. From Prosecutor Chen, Judge Barrett, it read, "Your courage made all the difference. 3 new witnesses have agreed to cooperate. Your ruling opened the door. We now have evidence implicating other industry figures using the same tactics to silence victims. The Miami witness? Toxicology? Reports suggest foul play. We're pursuing it aggressively. Had you not acted when you did, more people could have been harmed." Barrett placed the letter in her desk. The case had started with a question about phone records. It was ending with an industry reckoning. On her computer, she finalized a written opinion, a precedent-setting analysis of electronic communications in federal trials. One line stood out. The digital footprint we leave behind tells the truth, even when our words do not. In a rare interview with a judicial magazine, Barrett was asked if there was a moment she understood the case's full weight. "When I saw the contradictions between testimony and the phone records," she said, "there was only one way forward: reveal the truth, regardless of who was involved." She cited a quote from John Adams, framed in her chambers. "Facts are stubborn things." When asked what she'd say to others facing powerful opposition in less public settings, she replied, "Truth has power. It might take time. It might be resisted, but it will be heard if we create space for it. Outside her chambers, the impact grew. Labels launched internal audits. Grand juries were convened. More allegations surfaced. At the detention center, Diddy faced a stark new reality. No influence, no immunity, just accountability. The request for bail was denied. The judge cited Barrett's findings. In the weeks that followed, more people came forward. Stories once buried by intimidation were now public. Whistleblower reports increased. Lawsuits moved forward. Barrett had never sought the spotlight, but in doing her job, she became a symbol. As she left the courthouse one evening, a long-serving security guard stopped her. "My grandson asked me to thank you," he said. "He said you taught him doing what's right matters, even when it's hard." He paused. "I've seen powerful people walk through here thinking they were above the law. Most of the time, they were right, but not this time. You changed that." Barrett thanked him quietly and walked to her car, reflecting on how a routine evidentiary hearing had grown into something much larger. The next morning, she returned to work. Business as usual. There were other cases awaiting judgment, other individuals seeking justice. Though the Diddy case had captured national attention, for Barrett, it was never about fame or media coverage. It was about the guiding principle that had shaped her entire career. The law must apply equally to all. In her morning prayer, she asked for wisdom in handling the cases before her, knowing that each one deserved the same care and diligence she had shown when she examined the phone records that proved pivotal. The lessons stood out, simple yet profound. In a world where wealth and celebrity often seem to shield individuals from consequences, truth and justice can still prevail if those entrusted with the law act with courage and integrity. This wasn't merely a story about a well-known figure being held accountable. It was a reaffirmation of a foundational value in American democracy, that no one is above the law. It highlighted the power of facts, carefully uncovered and bravely presented, to overcome even the most entrenched barriers to justice. In the months that followed, as the trial moved forward and the broader investigation widened, the courtroom moment would continue to spark conversation. Legal experts would dissect her rulings, commentators would explore the cultural implications, and citizens would find renewed faith in the system. Yet the most meaningful outcomes unfolded quietly, away from cameras and headlines. A corporate leader who hesitated before destroying evidence. A witness who found the strength to speak the truth. A law student who chose a path of public service over the lure of corporate law. These were the quiet but powerful ripple effects of Barrett's decision to look deeper into the evidence, to follow the truth wherever it led, and to treat the case not as entertainment, but as a serious pursuit of justice. As one commentator observed, Barrett didn't set out to make history. She simply refused to ignore what was right in front of her. And sometimes, that's what makes all the difference. If this story moved you, consider liking the video and subscribing for more stories of justice, integrity, and the enduring power of truth. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that one person's courage can spark real change. And let us know in the comments which stories of justice you'd like us to feature next. Because in the end, the truth always finds a way.